Hi, I'm Brandy,
And I'm Jen.
and this is
Keeping it simple.
Hi, welcome to Keeping It Simple. In today's episode, episode 3, we're discussing the lily. All right, Jen. So, when you think of the lily, what are some keywords for you that come to mind?
The first thing I think of, because I always pictured the white lilies first and foremost, although there are a spectacular range of colors. And the white ones especially make me think of purity and innocence, all those kind of soft little qualities that are, pure. Sure.
You mean like your headphones and your white mic, that
Yes.
purity aspect?
I didn't wear white today though. I have white pants on. Does that
I
count?
know you deceived our listeners and our
I
viewers
know.
with
We're
your.
supposed to have our contrast.
So, I mean, it's not uncommon to think of the white lily, particularly in the States, right? Because that's a common flower that we see in different, like whether it's a rain lily, a calla lily, white is typically what we think of. But there are thousands of species of lilies. They are cover the entire globe, and they don't always look the same, which I find interesting. So when you get outside of those purity, innocence, virginity, those sorts of things that we associate, even death, you can start finding stories that look at good luck. And of course, beauty kind of goes in that like purity, natural essence. But you also find that based on color, it can be something pretty dramatically different, that has to deal with like unlawful sexual passions and things that you wouldn't normally consider, with a lily, right? You don't look at it and think, oh well, that makes me think of horrible deaths and stuff like that. So when we jump in, I think it's important for our listeners and our viewers to take into consideration that these stories, myths, legends, religions are literally all over the world, and it depends on the type of lily that is in that region and that area, whether it is a six-petaled lily, and not of all of them are six-petaled. Whether it's a six-petaled lily or not can have a significantly different meaning. Its color can have a different meaning. So just keep in mind, while you hear some threads of that run between each of the stories, you're also going to hear some dramatically different ones. And it's just because of the type of lily, color of the lily, the region, the area, etc. So I wanted to kick off. I brought up the whole unlawful sexual passion type thing. And I say unlawful because that's often how it's described now. But if you know the story of Apollo, he had a sodomite, which a lot of people, that's a, so a cat, do you know what a catamite is, Jen?
I don't.
Okay, so a
I'm s
catamite is kind of like, I don't wanna say a sex slave, but it's kind of like, it was associated with young boys typically, and it was like their young boy lovers. This is where we get a lot of controversy that goes on today. They use these older Greek, Roman stories. So anyways, Apollo's catamite was murdered, and when he was murdered, he turned into a red lily. His blood, when it fell to the ground, turned into red lilies.
Oh,
And so
wow.
the red lily is often associated with, now we use the term unlawful sexual drives, passions, etc. But you have to consider that Roman and Greek times were significantly different than modern day. So that's one of the ones I wanted to show kind of right out the gate. That's in contrast to what you said with the white lily, which again, you think of what when you think of the white lily?
Purity, innocence, virginity.
Yeah. And so it shows you how dramatically different just the color and the region can be.
Right.
But we're actually going to come back to this Apollo story because there's something very interesting to add to it.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
So what you got for me? What did you find?
Well, if we go, I always like to go science first because scientific facts are my jam. And one of the just kind of really sweet things about lilies is they are a social flower. So they thrive best when they're grown in groups of at least 3 to 5. And they can grow and thrive in larger groups as well. So we'll see this kind of repeated through other themes from other stories, but that is kind of a sense of community and unity that comes out of the lily simply from their growing habits. You know, they don't like to grow alone. That's sad. They don't want to grow by themselves. Some flowers do.
And that's something we'll get to that too, because it's interesting when you talk about them growing in groups and sticking together. That plays a significant symbolic role in Judaism in the lily.
Oh, so we're definitely going to hear more about that then
Yes,
too.
we're gonna go
Yeah,
into that. Yeah,
love
that's
that.
very interesting.
Yeah, there's
Any other
also
science?
there's I don't have a lot of more science of it. I think really this one has a lot more interest in the storytelling around it. But
There's a
that
lot.
was yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. I I think it's interesting that flowers in general, once you have anything floral, typically feels very feminine in nature because I think we kind of associate the soft kind of beauty of flowers as more feminine. I mean, would you agree with that? I think that's
Yeah, and especially in the
generically
modern
speaking.
age. Yes, in the
Yeah,
modern age, that's far more true than it would have been in ancient times where
right.
flowers were masculine or feminine, depending on the type of flower. And it was commonplace for males or those, more masculine figures to utilize flowers, wear flowers, whatever. In today's day and age, we are associating flowers. I mean, they did then as well, but I think far more now it's more of a feminine, and perhaps it's just a Western thing too.
That's true. That's absolutely true. But the lily in particular really kind of leans more towards masculine energy for a variety of reasons that we'll see. But scientifically, one of those reasons is the pistil that that
Yes.
lovely pistil that's a lot longer and more profound than in a lot of flowers and looks very phallic. It looks, it's got that kind of
What are you
phallic
trying to
type.
say, Jen? Does it have girth?
I'm saying it's got big pistil energy.
That's great. Um, yeah, it's one of those that it's interesting about the lily when you take into consideration that, and I know we're going to get to this because we can't help but get to it in that contrast with the rose, but it is a very masculine, despite the fact that it is associated with innocence, purity, and virginity, which we're going to get into those stories, that it is something often associated with the masculine,
Right.
just because of that, which there's some more to it, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, got big pistol energy working for this
Big
flower.
pistol energy. Yeah. You need to put that on the socials, the big
Yeah,
pistol energy.
big pistol energy, baby. Yeah, one of the things that's interesting too is in Victorian times, I know you know this, they had such an intimate language with flowers because
Oh, yeah.
the Victorians were notoriously very uptight and very much were not allowed to have these lavish displays of emotion in any way, shape, or form. So the way the roundabout for that was floriography. And floriography is the Victorian language of flowers. So every single flower that they used had some kind of hidden language to it that most people at the time understood. And what I think is interesting is it's not all lovey-dovey. Like I send somebody flowers because they're my friend or I love them or they're my lover. An orange lily sent to somebody could literally mean I hate you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, all right. Well, I mean, you could just keep that to yourself, but you could send a beautiful flower to signify
There's
that.
black lilies too.
There's black lilies?
There's
They
black
grow
lilies.
black? Okay, I'm gonna
They
have to
grow
we're gonna
black,
have to
and it
find a
is
picture of
very
that for the
it's very
socials.
much of a like wishing you decay and death.
Right. They were kinda cutthroat. I think there was also
Yeah.
one, what I can't remember which color of lily means, "You cannot deceive me." So that one's a little bit more like calling somebody out, being like, "You're not gonna trick me."
That's interesting.
But then
I
they
wonder if it's a blue
also
one,
yeah, I'll have to look back to my
because
notes,
blue
but
would make sense.
uh-huh, as far as that the
Hmm.
"you can't trick me"
Yeah, the clear,
energy.
because the blue with the clarity, the clearness, the air element. Yeah,
Right,
that's what my brain would go to just based off
right.
of symbolism of color, but that could be completely different than what the Victorians thought.
Right, but the Victorians also saw the lily as, a symbol of devotion. So you could just as easily send your lover a bouquet of lilies to say, "I'm just fully devoted to you."
I don't know
So,
if I'd send my lover one. That might, call me out as a whore in Victorian era before I'm married.
well, maybe it would be the male lover
The
sending it to the
courting,
female. The
the
female
courting.
wouldn't dare, of course, suggest she was devoted to somebody.
So one of the things that's interesting is do you know why people carry bouquets at weddings? Do you know the history of them?
Okay, I feel like I've heard the story, but you're gonna have to remind me, so tell me.
Because modern day bathing practices, hygiene
Yes.
practices are modern. We didn't bathe every day. And so oftentimes when people would congregate for a wedding or marital rites, it stunk in the
Right?
church. I mean, even if you're
It's
outdoors,
a lot
it
of stinky
stunk. It
people.
was it was nasty. And so the bride carried bouquets of flowers to cover her smell or the smell of the people around her. It was basically a mechanism to cover up the funk.
Yeah, because you don't
It's
want
a
everything to be stanky on your wedding day.
Yeah, and so one of the favorite flowers was lilies because of their strong aromatics.
But
So
only the white lily is aromatic.
yes, correct. They didn't carry most of the stuff that they carried was white back then, which interestingly, dresses weren't white.
Right.
You only wore a white dress if you were poor. You carried white lilies, but you did not wear a white dress. Only the peasants wore white dresses because they couldn't afford the dye.
Right. Oh, that's
So
fascinating.
it's interesting that it's got that again, that innocence, that virginity, because again, even though they know through historical records, a lot of females were not virgins when they got married, because of birth records. I mean, they got married 7 months ago and babies here. So you know
Right?
what I'm saying? So they knew. But again, it has that virginity, that innocence, that purity aspect of carrying the white lily and again covering the stench.
Right.
So it's almost like covering your walk of shame down the aisle.
Yes. Covering all the stankiness that you bring.
There you go. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Love it.
So I know that it's also big in China.
They
Do you know
are,
anything about
yes.
China?
Yeah, they are very much a symbol of good luck in China. They are particularly gifted at weddings. In China, one of the reasons they're gifted in weddings, and I'm not going to try to pronounce some of the pronunciation of these Chinese characters because I feel like I will just butcher it. But the word for lily in Chinese, the way it is pronounced is phonetically very similar to another Chinese word that is a proverb meaning happy union for 100 years. So
Oh, cool.
not only was it meant to be a gift of joy for your wedding, it was also literally wishing the couple a long lasting happy union, specifically 100 years, which I can't imagine being married for 100 years, but okay.
I mean,
I can
Chinese
imagine.
people live pretty long. I mean,
They
so the
do.
way the
They
way that
do.
their lifespan, yeah, they take better
Yeah,
care of themselves than we do.
they
So
absolutely do.
I don't know about 100 years of marriage. That would indicate that you'd have to be older to be old enough to be married. But I mean, that
Right.
makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I in China also, do you know about them binding their feet? Have you heard about
Yes.
that? So they
Yes.
take, for our listeners, or viewers who aren't familiar, in Chinese culture, it is it's not as common practice as it used to be, but women would bind their feet, literally take their feet and bind them up and wrap them to make it was a very hooked, almost like a hoof style foot. And the smaller the feet, the more beautiful the woman type of thing. And so those bound feet were called golden lilies.
I had never heard that. That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
So the golden lilies were the symbol of the tiny foot in Chinese women who bound their feet,
Oh, it's such a
which is,
horrific practice
it
too.
is. And a lot of it, there's been a lot of pushback, obviously, because now we know more health wise how important the feet are. And to bind your feet into a hook like that is pretty,
It's a deformity. It's a forced
yeah, it is.
deformity. They could barely
It is.
walk.
Yeah, that's what they're considering. A lot of people consider it that way. Of course, in their culture, that is their culture and what they do. The
Right.
other thing is that uh, women in China, in order to get past grief or get past a lost love, something like that, they will actually carry a lily on their belt. So you know how they wrap their waist It's literally like a belt. They will carry a lily in it. So I
Oh,
thought that
that's
was interesting.
lovely.
I started digging into it because I've seen it before, and I'm like, I want to know why. And I think it came from Mulan. I think that's where I saw it was Mulan, but I'm not positive. But I remember thinking, I know she carries a lily on her. For some reason, I was thinking it was in her hair, but when I dug, it was talking about a lily kept in the waist belt. So that's not the okay. Now here's one that's kind of in that same grief, loss, love, innocence, beauty type thing, and it's Persephone.
See,
So
this one
the
I'm really
story.
excited for because when you mentioned this, I was like, I don't know this one, and I love me some Persephone
Okay,
energy.
so what briefly in 30 seconds or less, what is the story of Persephone?
Well, the story I think of is the one with the pomegranate, where she is kidnapped by Hades because he has an eye for her, and taken away from her mother Demeter, and taken to the underworld, where she eats 6 seeds of the pomegranate and is trapped there for 6 months of the year. Then she's allowed to go see her mother for the other half on the surface, but she kind of goes between worlds. She lives in
Okay.
that. She's queen of the underworld, but she also goes to the surface half the year.
Okay, so do you know what Persephone was doing when she got kidnapped by Hades?
No,
She was picking lilies.
get out.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Get out of
Yeah.
here. How did I not know this? This is
I don't know.
so
That's why I was kind
cool.
of surprised. I was like, because this time we swapped kind of what we're going to just briefly talk about, but not telling each other the stories for our
Yeah.
listeners and viewers. We decided to kind of give it more of an outline. And when I did not see the name Persephone on Jen's list, I was like, huh,
Huh.
well, yeah. Yeah. So she was actually picking lilies when Hades kidnapped her.
Okay,
And
that's
so
wild. I did not know that.
yeah, you go back into that innocence, purity, virginity, and then at the same time, temptation, the gates of hell and the underworld, the death.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
very dramatic representation in a single story on the two dramatically different sides of the lily.
Well, it also kind of brings in like secret, secret wisdom because if
That
or
is correct.
initiation, because you think
The
about,
pomegranate
yeah,
and yeah, the
or even
underworld. Yeah.
just even the transition from being stolen from her virginal state and taken by
Yes.
by Hades and becoming a queen and a wife, and kind of that you learn secret knowledge that you were not privy to, and when you're initiated into the rites of sexual passage.
There.
Ooh,
See, it's
saucy.
fascinating. Okay, so that was a sidestep. I know we were talking about Asia predominantly, but I wanted to kind of sidestep into that because I was
Oh
like, that's
yeah.
one that kind of goes in that same lines and the loss, the sorrow, the grief, all of that. All right. So tell me about, okay, you say lilies and feng shui. I am intrigued. What is lilies and feng shui?
Yeah, and just in case any of our listeners don't know what feng shui is, uh, in a very quick, simplified way to say it, it's in China, it's an ancient Chinese practice that uses energy forces to harmonize a person's environment. So it's sometimes in the modern days kind of goes hand in hand with decorating your home or laying out your home, the way you position things, the directions you put things, where you put things in your home. So it's a practice that's supposed to kind of work those energies on, to better serve you. It's really a beautiful, I would love to learn more about it. I've only like dabbled in it and tried, occasional tips from feng shui, probably a little bit patchy, like in my own house. Like, okay, I've heard that. I'll do that one thing because maybe it'll bring me luck. But the lily in feng shui is considered to be associated with wealth. So it's a very good thing to have lilies in your house, in your home, either as fresh bouquets when they're in season, like actually having arrangements
Yeah.
in certain places of your house, kind of very strategically placed, or you could have lilies actually in the embroidery of, of something that's on your sofa, or it could be in the artwork or in the certain placements that way as well, because that energy of the lily is still there. So it's meant to it's seen as acquired wealth. So if you're not already wealthy, it's going to encourage that energy for you to accumulate and acquire more wealth. What I thought was really interesting though was they say never to put red and white lilies together in a combination. Once you do that, the energy changes and it creates kind of a really funky energy. I think that's really
Cool.
interesting because we're going to see later on the lily paired with another red flower very intimately.
Well,
So
yeah, and if you think about what we just talked about, the Apollo story and the dramatic difference between a white lily and a red lily, I mean,
right.
it would be almost like they would cancel each other out.
Yeah.
Gives very like
Yeah.
5 of Wands energy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's interesting. All right, so what? You're talking about Buddhism? What is
Yep,
this
yes.
Buddhism?
Yeah, this one's just a
Oh,
simple one I found, but the tiger lily, which I think is one of the most personally beautiful lilies myself. It's the that one that's got the spots and oh, they're so exotic looking. They just look so beautiful. I think they're gorgeous. Buddhism specifically loves the tiger lily and sees it as a symbol of mercy and compassion. I just thought that was really lovely.
fun fact.
Hmm.
Tiger lily has been my favorite flower my entire life until about a year ago.
Until
And
about
then
a
I
year
just
ago.
yeah, I started leaning into the rose. I mean, I know you've seen all my rose stuff,
Well,
but
I was
it's
gonna say I know you to know the love the
the
rose. So
rose.
I haven't
Yeah,
known you super long, but I'm like, wait a minute, I thought you were a rose gal. I don't know
I
anything
am,
about you,
but
Brandy.
it was so interesting because I did not like the
Yeah.
rose. I have always been very adamantly opposed to roses. I'm like, they're so cliche, they're this, they're
Yeah.
that. I was always a tiger lily person. And then, like a year ago, it's like something clicked. I still love tiger lilies,
Right.
but yeah, the roses, it's interesting when you look at, and we're going to get into the comparison of the rose and the lily and how the two
Yeah.
play together. But tiger lilies specifically have always been my favorite. So, which I think part of that's also because the tiger is my favorite animal. So it kind of just
That
like as a
makes
kid, you're
sense.
like, oh, it's a tiger and it's a lily. Like it's just amazing.
Yeah.
So, one of the things in Buddhism that I know of is that the lily is a symbol of enlightenment. And
Oh,
so it is comparable to the lotus flower. And a lot of lotuses were considered lilies. A lot of them are actually called lilies of the XYZ, but
right.
they're not lilies. They're in fact a different species. Because it's very interesting that the lily is in Buddhism, it's a sign of enlightenment. And you're talking about its compassion.
Yeah,
So
mercy and compassion, which if you
yeah,
think about it, being an enlightened person, I think those
you're
traits go hand in hand because the more enlightened
yeah.
you are, the more you're able to be compassionate towards other people.
You can't in my opinion, I think that's one of the hardest things that people have come to or have to come to grasp with is that you can have different viewpoints, you could have different beliefs, whatever it is, but you have to have mercy and compassion. Of course, there's certain things that are just not acceptable regardless because of the harm that they cause.
Sure.
um but I do think that that is a sign of true enlightenment, is the ability to take that center, to be compassionate, to have the mercy, and to say, I'm different, you're different, but that's okay.
Right.
So when you get into that lotus water lily, here was a couple of things that I kind of dug into. And then this, when I saw the Buddhism, I was like, this is just kind of an offshoot, is that when the lotus and lily are compared, whether it's Buddhism and even in ancient Egypt, they were seen as the same. These are something that rise from the mud. So you
Right.
talk about a lily, again, that death aspect, that rebirth, that renewal, that regeneration, um, to where it's the potential of something rising out of the mud, out of the darkness into the light. And these flowers do it daily. So a lot of these species will actually do it every single day. They close down, they go up, they go down, they go up. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it's like a rebirth every single solitary day. And it's very much a cyclical thing where we can take, you have the what is the saying? About like every day is a new day for to making change, or what, do you know what I'm talking about? That saying that's kind of like you get however many seconds in a day to redo your life or whatever. It's that, it's tomorrow is another day, tomorrow will come, that sort of aspect. This is one that I wanted to make sure that I said it correctly. The blue water lily, which is also known as the blue lotus or the sacred blue lily, is a prominent feature in the pillars, stone altars, and other parts of Egyptian temples. And so it holds a significant place in Egyptian mythology and is regarded as a symbol of the sun and the sign of rebirth. So if you see in ancient, I know you like Egypt, right?
Oh,
Like
girl, you
that's your
know I love
jam.
me
Yeah,
some
yeah.
Egypt.
So you see the flowers, the lotus or the lily.
Yeah,
That's actually what it's called. It's called the sacred blue lily or the blue lotus. And again, it's that rebirth, that renewal, that coming out and out of the darkness into the sunlight. Um,
I'm
so
picturing
I think
that's what the motif at the top of their columns typically, right?
correct.
The
Yeah. It's
right.
at the top of their pillars. It's in a lot of the altar work. And so it brings us back to when you look at something as quote unquote dramatically different as Buddhism and ancient Egyptian mythology, you have two different areas that are talking about again kind of that same symbolism of mercy, compassion, rebirth, the sun. If you go down those rabbit holes, you end up in this is a we're going to go into the goddess god stuff, but this is that rabbit hole that goes down to in the Middle East, the Sumerian, the Babylonian, Astarte. So we're talking pre-Egypt.
Right.
um you've heard of Lilith, yes?
Oh, yes.
Biblical Lilith. Okay, so there's also the Sumerian Babylonian Lilith, which many will argue is the same figure, if that makes sense. It's the same Adam and Eve story, the Lilith that predates Eve. If you don't know that Adam from biblical times was married to, well, yes, he was married to Lilith before Eve. She refused to be submissive. She left the Garden of Eden. That's when God gave him Eve. So there's also this debate on whether Astarte, whose name is also Lilith, is the actual Adamic Lilith. Her name means lily.
Oh, that's interesting.
So when we step back and you talk about the lily, you're talking about the goddess of creation, war, and sex. And you take that symbolism of her being the lily and you transfer that to ancient Egypt, where you're talking about, again, that rebirth aspect, because we're talking creation and sex.
Right.
We also, if you know anything about Egyptian warfare, well, not just Egyptian, it could be any of them. How were nations forged? Through war. They created new nations. They expanded their territory through war. So it's that fertility of the land. Anyway, so that's a side rant that I've gone on for way too long. But Astarte is the pre-Venus of Rome,
Oh,
the
that's
goddess,
interesting. Yeah.
and possibly, potentially, arguably Lilith from the Old Testament.
Yeah, and I just have to say I love the story of her of her being like, no, thank you. I'm not gonna be your submissive wife."
Yeah.
And it being like,
Get bent
"Peace
and
out.
left. Yeah.
I'm out of here." So let's just say Lilith had big pistol energy.
There you go. Yeah. And it's very much it's interesting because it goes back to again, she had that masculine side of her. When we think of divine feminine, divine masculine qualities,
Yes.
females were not supposed, I mean, they were, because females were actually had an equal standing as males and in a lot of the ancient cultures. A lot of them still do. But when you think about the different traditions of how a female is represented, she very much had that masculine energy as Astarte, but that very expected feminine role of her biblically still chose to embrace the masculine
Yeah.
of get bent, I'm leaving.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
So do you have anything? I saw you wrote Venus. What do you got on her? Because this, I mean, this is her. This is where she came from.
Yeah, and the Roman legend holds that the goddess Venus took one look at the lily and was just consumed with jealousy at its beauty. This is the
Oh,
white lily. She first saw a white lily, they say, but she was so kind of jealous of the beauty because Venus, both any of those incarnations, Roman goddess Venus, the Greek goddess Aphrodite, they all kind of were like the bomb.com as far as like the top beauty of goddess realm and the
yeah.
pantheon. So I think there was a lot of ego there that they assigned to their goddesses as well. So she was jealous, and so she, in theory, is the one that gave the lily the big pistol, and because she considered the pistol to make it look more. I think it took away in her mind some of that beauty, some of the feminine beauty of it, to give it this kind of masculine, long, big pistol. And so she's the one that took one look and said, "Nope, I'm going to give you this to make you a little less beautiful." because,
I
nobody's
mean,
supposed to be more beautiful than me, even
that
flowers.
sounds like the something Astarte or Lilith, the goddess of creation and war, would do. Love and war. You can, yeah. So that's I have never heard that. That's
Yeah, I
interesting
thought
to
it was
me.
interesting too because they say one source I found said I found lots of sources credit Venus with being associated with the lily for this reason, for this story.
I've
But
heard of
also,
Aphrodite.
yeah, also satyrs. They said the satyrs are sometimes associated and
Yeah,
linked to lilies, probably because of that masculine pistol,
I've heard the satyrs. Yeah,
lustful energy of the satyrs.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
The Germanic goddess, I never say this right. Vestre? Vestra? I know
Yeah.
what her holiday is.
Right.
Um, anyways, she is also that Venusian fertility in the spring equinox, and she's associated with lilies and bunnies when we just did the episode on the
We
bunny.
just did the
So
bunny.
lily and bunny tend to go together. So it's very interesting when you see that, Astarte, Lilith, Venus, and then there's another one in there. Her name is,
Her
what do you
name
know
is
about
what?
Hera? Hera. What do you know about Hera?
Oh, I love the Hera and the lily. So the Greek goddess Hera, for anybody who doesn't know, Hera is kind of the top goddess because she was the wife to Zeus. So it made her kind of one of the big time ones.
Spiteful.
Yeah, she was definitely spiteful. In all fairness, she had a husband, Zeus. It was kind of a cad. He definitely was always having trysts and always having affairs, sometimes taking the part of, shapeshifting into some other animal to trick somebody into an affair. He was all over the place. He was a hot mess. So in one of his affairs,
He's a hoe.
he's a hoe. He's a hoe. He's an F boy. So he had an affair with a mortal woman, um, and it resulted in the birth of Hercules. So most people know Hercules as the demigod who was super strong, super awesome. When Hercules was a little baby, he wanted Hercules to grow strong. And obviously, Hera, with her goddessness, would obviously have probably the best breast milk around. So he tried to sneak Hercules into the breastfeeding rotation with her other children at the time. Just like she wouldn't notice there's an extra baby that she's popping on the teat.
Wow.
And so she figured it out as he was nursing and was pissed. And so she kind of pushed him off, and the breast milk spewed as like in a fountain, hit the ground, and beautiful white lilies grew and where the milk droplets had fallen. So she becomes associated forever with lilies. But I think that also makes the lily, interestingly, has a dual nature in this story with motherhood. Obviously this is a little bit of a twisted story around motherhood, but still there's that mothering nature, but
Yeah.
nourishment, because if you think of breast milk being, whether she was willing to give it readily or not to Hercules, the breast milk making the lilies, breast milk is one of the most nourishing, perfect foods, especially for an infant on the planet. So you have all those themes of nourishment, like spiritual nourishment, emotional nourishment, all the forms of nourishment come up with a
Well,
lily.
so there's a couple of things here that came to mind. Do you know that's where the Milky Way came from?
No.
That's where the legend of the Milky Way came from, is that when Hera pushed Hercules off her breast and the milk spewed, it created the Milky Way. That's why it's called the Milky Way.
Okay, see, I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So there's that. And then you were talking about nourishment, and then made me think there's a lot of lilies that will only grow in the vitamin. Lord, I could help if I could talk. Vitamin, mineral, etc. rich, very, very close base of a volcano. So you're talking about that
Oh,
nourishment. A volcano could be described as brush shaped, it could be explosive. And at the same time, there's a lot of lilies they're beautiful, obviously expensive because they're exotic and they're hard to get your hands on, that only grow, and they are actually farmed at the very closest base of a volcano.
okay,
So
that
it's
is really freaking fascinating. I also now that you're saying the volcano is breast shaped, it makes me giggle because anybody who's been a mother who's breastfed knows that if your breasts get too full of milk and they haven't been
volcanic.
expelled, that stuff will spurt right out of there.
across, yeah, like across
Like
the room. That's what I'm
it's
saying.
like ready to blow.
It's very similar to a volcano. So you think
Yeah.
about the Milky Way, her pushing him off, and then,
Uh-huh.
the vitamin mineral rich soil that's at the base of a volcano. It's very interesting.
That's so cool.
So I will say this though, I'm sure you can see that I marked Juno. Uni.
Yes.
Here's what's interesting. That breast milk story is seen in Juno, who is the Roman equivalent of Hera.
Right.
The same, she's the goddess of love, marriage, and the protector of women and family. You have the same immaculate conception and breast milk story with her and the Virgin Mary, and as well as Astarte, equivalent Uni, which is for the universe
Oh.
god. So she even predates that. But what's interesting with Juno is it said that she used a magical lily to conceive Mars. And that's where the Immaculate Conception story comes from, which is
Oh,
interesting
I
because
love
we're going to
that.
go into Mary and the Virgin Mary story. We're going to go down some wormholes. Um, so that's just something that I thought was pretty cool. Now with uni, I know you said you had put fleur de lis on here, and I'm glad that you did. And I know you're a Louisiana girl, so you know your stuff.
That's right.
But what's interesting is with uni or uni, which is the universe, that's the one. She is actually associated. She's the earliest that I could find that is associated with the fleur de lis. She's the triple
Oh.
goddess, and her emblem was the three-lobed lily, which turned into the fleur de lis. And it stems from the Sanskrit word yoni, which is the source for universe, and fleur de lis being the three lobes. The lily was supposed to represent her virginal state at this immaculate conception.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
See, I did, yeah. So I'm interested to hear what you got to say because I know you know fleur de lis, especially in more in the modern stuff.
I just have to tell you, I'm having this flash in my head of what we were talking about earlier with the when people are, what do you call that when you have the yarn connecting
Oh
things?
yeah, yeah,
What's
oh
that called
yeah.
again?
So it's called link analysis, is what
Link
we call it.
analysis. So I'm picturing, and there's a meme too, a famous meme of a
Yeah,
guy that's like crazy, like doing all the connections. That's what it feels like when we talk about this stuff. Everything is interconnected and they all kind of go back to each other. So it's almost like we want to take the yarn and plot all these
yes,
different connections. So it's just, it makes my mind just get Twitter pated.
Twitter pated.
Twitter
Hey, that's a
pated.
bunny. That's a bunny reference. You should listen to the last episode where we talked about rabbit for
That's
Twitter
right.
pated.
That's right. But yeah, the fleur de lis, it's a very old symbol. It's they found it. That's interesting. I didn't know that the connection you were telling me about, but it's definitely linked to ancient times. For anybody who doesn't know, we'll definitely drop some images on the socials. But a fleur de lis, if you've ever seen anything from Louisiana, you probably are familiar with the symbol, whether you know it or not. It's a very stylized emblem that has 3 points to the lily. Interestingly, it is very debated whether it's a lily or an iris that's depicted. But the word itself, yeah, we're going with lily because literally fleur de lis is French for lily flower. So it's in the word itself, it's in the name itself. So we're going with that. But that's just an interesting twist that there are some people that say they think it's more like an iris. But we're gonna go lily. But yeah, it's been around since ancient times. One of the earliest examples that has been found is on a gold helmet from the Scythians, who they're a nomadic European people that go back all the way to the 7th century BC. So it's an old one. There's actually some instances too in Egypt, though they didn't necessarily think it was used as it is nowadays. It was more a symbol that looked similar to the fleur de lis and the way it's arranged, but it was for the symbol for asp, the snake, the asp snake, which is the one that bit Cleopatra. So it's anyway, that was fascinating too. But overall, it's really a French symbol because the French, somewhere along the lines, French royalty kind of adopted it as their emblem. So it's very, very tied to all the French monarchies, French history as a whole, and French Catholicism, because the French monarchies were very Catholic in nature. And so there's kind of the Catholic ties to it too. I did not know this though when I was looking into it. The Boy Scouts of America use it as their emblem. They have an eagle on top of it, but it's their logo, the fleur de lis with the eagle. So I didn't actually know that was a usage of it. Apparently, it was originally a badge they would give out, And they eventually took it over as, excuse me, as their logo because the director at the time thought it looked like the point of a compass. And he felt like that was very significant for the imagery for Boy Scouts. Also, the three petals were seen to represent the Boy Scout creed, which included duty to God, responsibility for self, and service to others. So I just thought that was interesting. It's been really adopted and used in multiple places. But my favorite, of course, is its use in Louisiana because I am from Louisiana. That's where I was born and raised. And Brandy and I have a trip planned to New Orleans. Holla! So she is going to
We
get to
just gotta make it through the
experience.
night. Like what? Like 2 months, 6 weeks, something like that. Yeah.
That's right, because she's never been. So I'm going to show her all the good stuff. But it is a symbol you will see everywhere in New Orleans. And for good reason, because historically, New Orleans is a very, very old city. And historically, it in 1682, the explorer, oh, I'm gonna get this wrong, Sieur de La Salle. Hopefully I got that a little Frenchy. First claimed the Mississippi Valley for King Louis the 16th. And they planted a flag that had a fleur de lis when they claimed that for King Louis the 16th. And decades later, French settlers officially founded New Orleans as a city, La Nouvelle Orleans, which means New Orleans. And by the way, for any of you Yankees out there, it's not New Orleans. You need to draw it a little bit more close to
Hey
Nolans.
now.
Okay, it's Nolans. Run that together, Nolans. All right. Just a little tip for you, pro tip. But I thought this was a really beautiful reference too, that it's always been popular down there as a motif. You'll see it in architecture, you'll see it everywhere, but it really resurged after Hurricane Katrina. And I think that's a beautiful way they use that symbol as a symbol of pride for their city and determination to defy the odds and still try to rebuild as a city and as a community. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, unity, community. The lilies like to grow together in groups, and that was such a beautiful use of it as a symbol of community and pride.
So I have a question for you. Do you know what the time check is right now?
Did I just go on for like 10 minutes about the fleur de
No,
lis?
no, no. I'm asking because you just opened up 3 new rabbit holes I want to go down, but I know we were trying to keep this at
We
an
were trying
hour
to keep it.
and you're gonna, I mean,
Oh no.
that's why, do you have any idea how long we've been on? Because I
I
don't, we
I
might have to,
think we've been on about close to 45 minutes, 50 minutes or so. So it's been
okay.
a while.
So we're gonna slam through some stuff really quick. You ready?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, ready to be mind blown?
Yeah, I love it. Bring it on.
Okay, so we're gonna skip in a couple different places because I'm about to take you down some conspiracy theories, and whether or not they're
Ooh,
conspiracy theories or it's history that's being uncovered, we shall see. So
love
when you
it.
talk about the French monarchies and you talk about Catholicism and the Boy Scouts of America, here's where you got to kind of step back into the Bible and you got to step back into some other stuff first. So we're gonna touch on this, and then I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna hit you with some
Let's
stuff
go.
that okay. So we're gonna step real quick. We're gonna go into the Bible. And just to preface, please keep your minds open whether or not you are a Christian or not. We are not here to represent any religion, but we are here to just give you the information that you can see the symbolism as it pertains to all these threads, and again, link analysis throughout the world. So you ready? You
Yes.
ready to do this? We're going to slam through it. Okay. So here's a few things. At the actual annunciation to Gabriel, or to Mary, the Virgin Mary, from Gabriel, that she was going to have the Son of God, it is said that he was carrying lilies in his hand, that it was the white lily to basically say, like, we know that you are pure. We recognize that this is a pure conception, that you're going to have the child of God. Also, the Virgin Mary is known as the star of the sea, the Stella Marie, which is the lily. So you have that lily association. It was also said that lilies were said to be yellow until the Virgin Mary picked them, at which point they turned white. This was a representation of the new Eve, her
Ooh.
being basically the new Eve. So it is a sign of repentance, because in the Old Testament, when God kicked kicked Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, as Eve was leaving, she realized she was pregnant. She started crying. Her tears hit the ground and lilies started to grow.
Oh, that's
So you
lovely.
have the repentant side of Eve leaving the Garden of Eden. She's crying. There are lilies. Then you have now the white lily associated with the Virgin Mary, picking them, and they're yellow. They turn white. It's basically that repentance, the new birth, the new age of woman, whatever you want to call it. I'm not here to debate semantics. So then you have the Roman Christians. This is interesting because you talked about the French monarchies and Catholicism. Now, the Romans believe that lilies sprang from Mary's breast milk as well. We just talked about
Oh,
some of those same stories. And then the lily of the valley, which is not actually a lily. This is what I should actually do some digging on this because I thought it wasn't a lily and then I was reading it wasn't. It's not.
it's
But
an
the lily of the
imposter.
valley, it is. It's an imposter. It was classified as a lily, but as they've gotten better at identification, it is no longer considered a lily. Is known as Mary's tears. It's an actual plant known as, it's called the lily of the valley. It's known as Mary's tears. And it was told that when Mary cried at the cross, her tears turned into flowers. So you have her breast milk turning into the lilies. You have her tears at the cross turning into the lilies. You have her picking them and them turning white. So it's very interesting, that from the moment that Gabriel presents to her for the Annunciation, he's holding lilies all the way until her tears turning into lilies at Jesus's death upon the cross.
Yeah.
I'll
Wow.
say alleged death upon the cross. No, I'm
There
just
you
joking.
go.
But I'm really not. Um, so the other thing that I thought was really interesting is that the lily of the valley mentioned in the second sermon of the Song of Solomon is interpreted as Jesus as the lily and the valley is the world. So he is essentially the tree of life planted in the Garden of Eden.
Oh, wow.
And so it goes back to that masculine pistol. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is a lot around Mary.
Woo, that is a lot. Oh, and did you know that legend has it that when she died, when the Virgin Mary passed away, that they went into her tomb and they found it empty except for lilies and roses?
That would not surprise me. I did not know that, but that would not surprise me. Um, because the Christian chalice, what we know, the Grail, is
Right?
associated, that comes from the calyx of the lily. So for our tarot readers, which I'm sure we're going to get into, you have that chalice, you have the cups, that whole womb aspect, which sends us down the Holy Grail. You ready for some stuff?
Yeah, I
That's it.
love it. Let's go.
Okay. Okay. So if you know anything about the Holy Grail legends, it's said to be a cup, a chalice that was present at the Last Supper. Through people who have done historical research, essentially, and I'm a huge proponent of Lynn Pickett. If you don't know who she is, she'll even friend you on Facebook. Really knowledgeable woman. She was actually in the Da Vinci Code movie. She's on the bus. Her and Clyde are on the bus. They are two historians. This is what they do. So it was interesting that they got to be in the movie. So it's said that the Holy Grail is actually Mary Magdalene, having been pregnant at the time of Jesus's crucifixion. Okay, have you heard of this, Jen?
Well, I have
Have you
heard
heard?
that she was his wife and
Yes.
gave him children. I have heard that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then when you get into it's so much to put out there, but when you get into all of the books that have been removed from the Bible,
Mm.
including hers, so it's interesting because you have this lily. It comes from the chalice, the Christian church, right? The chalice, the Holy Grail. Then you have Mary, the Virgin Mary, whose womb created Christ. And then you have his bloodline that potentially was carried through Mary Magdalene, and her chalice, her uterus, her bloodline. Now, here's what's interesting is they say that when she fled pregnant following his crucifixion, she went to France.
Oh, no
And
way.
yeah. So she went to France. That's where she said there is actually it's called Rennes-le-Chateau. It is it's a church that's there, and you really, anybody who's interested, I actually just sent this book to a client who was going to go and unable to go, and so I sent the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which will send you down that path, they say. And this has nothing to do, I mean, it does kind of have to do with the Da Vinci Code movies, right? But at the same hand, it doesn't. That was actually based on actual research that's been done by historians, is that the legend holds that she fled to France, which is where the Knights Templar came from. That's where your Freemasons then came out of, that as a suspected belief. So that ties in your French monarchy and why they're carrying the fleur de lis. That ties in your Catholicism. And then interestingly, the Boy Scouts of America, if I'm not mistaken, was founded by Masons who are,
How did I
so
didn't know that.
yeah. So I'm not positive, but if I'm not mistaken, it was founded by Masons. So that does not surprise me one bit, anything that you just said.
My
It
whole
just kind of,
mind just went,
yeah. So
that's
I mean, if you
mind
take into
blowing,
consideration that potentially the lily herself
right?
was Mary, Virgin Mary, then Mary Magdalene, and then the offspring, which was said to be a female, and that it that child of Jesus's is said to be in the bloodline of the French monarchies, was said to be royal blood, actually married into some of the French bloodlines,
Okay,
and so
wow. I gotta read
carried
this book
through.
that you gotta tell me about this book when we're done. I gotta
It's
read this
whole,
book.
yeah, it's Holy Blood, Holy Grail. There's actually a ton of
Okay.
information out there. And like I said, Lynn Pickett, you can find her. She's written several books on the Templars and Mary Magdalene. She's a historian. She's really, really intelligent woman. So here's another side that goes to that. You know, I'm a huge Da Vinci fan. If anybody is around me for any amount of time, I'm a big Da Vinci fan. It's a bit much. So are you familiar with his work? I'm sure you are, because your background in classical art.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so
definitely.
you know the Virgin of the Rocks.
Yes.
Okay, so what's interesting is that there's a lot of controversy around the Virgin of the Rocks for different reasons. One, Peter is with, or I'm sorry, not Peter, John is with the Virgin, and Jesus is with uh, Uriel. I never say that right. Uriel. And so there's that controversy on why each child is with the other person. Then in that painting, there are flowers. Those flowers, if you know Da Vinci, you know that he is very adamant about realism. Like
Oh, yes.
it's very, very realistic. Those flowers are non-identifiable. Now, it is kind of scandalous that he would put this hybrid flower in there, which may or may not be a lily and a daffodil. Okay.
Oh,
So this is where I'm going to get you. This is where we go back to Apollo. This is what and this is my interpretation. This is what I thought was interesting.
yeah.
Um, in that, why he did not include the lily. Now, the lily became synonymous with the Virgin Mary in the 12th century. So that's interesting, that out of all the flowers he could pick, he did not only did he not pick the lily, he created one that is unidentifiable, and it looks to be a hybrid between the two. Now, back to Apollo. Okay. In the story of Apollo, when we first started, we talked about Apollo's catamite being um, turned into essentially this lily upon death, the blood spilt. Now the understanding is, this is research, so I could be kind of, this is where my brain went. It was identified as a daffodil beforehand, so it's almost like that, not stepping into the symbolism of daffodil necessarily, but stepping into that backward story, because Da Vinci knew his mythology. There's no question about that. So you talk about the symbolism of the daffodil in that tainted nature, right? Like something
Yeah.
that isn't what you think it is, and blood spilt and sacrifice. And it's almost like it kind of alludes to something not being what you think it is, something not being what it seems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you have a daffodil hyacinth turned into a lily. Anyways, I hope that
Didn't
wasn't
you
too
also
convoluted.
say earlier that the Virgin Mary held a yellow lily and it turned white in her hand?
Correct.
So
Yes.
I understand that wasn't a daffodil, but that makes me think of that yellow turning white and pure.
And you should look at the color of the flower in the painting.
Okay.
So that's another one that I found interesting because I've always looked at it and I'm like, that's just really fascinating to me that
Yeah.
being the realist that he is, that he would just create a flower and it's a hybrid of a flower that's associated with what it's associated with in the story of Apollo. That's very interesting to me. Okay,
Yeah.
so I know we're short on time, so we still need to get through a few things. Do you know where we are on time? Do we need to do an episode 2? Is that a
Yeah,
thing?
we're pushing about an hour right now. So
Okay, you think we could do it in
yeah.
10 minutes?
Let's
Let's do
do
it.
it. We can do it. Let's
Okay.
knock it out.
So lilies in the tarot is kind of already the thing that I've talked about. You've got that Ace of Cups, um, and the Ace of Pentacles, which goes back to the cups dealing with the Mary Magdalene story, the chalice being a part of the lily itself. And so in that Ace of Cups, you have the lily being the chalice, literally, and the dove, which is synonymous also with the Virgin Mary. So it's a very Ace of Cups gives that very innocence, purity, love, all of those keywords we associate with it. But it also kind of gives you that immaculate conception, that divine feminine aspect of what's been passed down. And then the Ace of Pentacles is kind of the same thing. You have that in the background, you have it's a garden of lilies, and you have the Ace of Pentacles. So it's again that like pregnancy, that conception.
Right.
Those were two that I thought that I immediately thought of when we talked. I mean, of course, there's other things with lilies, but what you got?
Yeah, and the tarot, also lilies are quite often paired with red roses. So you'll see them together on cards, like really powerful cards like the Magician, the Hierophant. I believe the Two of Wands is another one. When they're combined like that, they're meant to work together as a symbolic pair, balancing masculine and feminine energies. So again, like we've talked about, the lily is the masculine, and in this case, the red rose is the feminine. And when you see them together, it's that balancing of those energies. And especially in something like the Magician, to create magic, balancing, opposite energies to create magic. Also in the Hermetic tradition, the lily is wisdom and the rose is compassion. So you have them again balancing wisdom with compassion when they're together in pairs.
So, as a hermetic kabbalist, because that's what I am, the other side of it is the lily and the rose are the semen and the menses blood. So, a lot
Oh,
of people
snap.
don't. Yeah, a lot of people also don't realize the aspect of procreation and sexual magic. That is the ultimate way to honor creation, is to create, and so that also ties back to the Mary Magdalene story and the alchemical marriage and a whole bunch of other stuff. You also have the lily being like it's that aspect of the mercurial, right? So it's calling in the mercurial aspect in order to do the alchemical process, the changes, is what we call the great work, right? And so it's that magnus opum that is, when you see the two, like with the Magician, is the one I go to, right? Because it's the Magi, and as you're talking
Right.
about the magnus opum, the great work. So you're talking about it, it's about getting to that incorruptible, eternal state of like, I have pulled myself apart. I have cleansed the aspects and I put myself back together more holy, more pure. Does that make sense? Like you've
It
got, in
does.
order to make an alchemical process, you often have to tear things apart and then put them back together. So that's the other side of the lily. And it's also, have you heard of it being the Merkaba? I say Merkaba. Most people say Merkaba, but because of the Hebrew, it's Merkaba with a V. Have you heard of the Merkaba or Merkaba, however you say it?
Yes, I have heard of that.
Okay. So the lily is also associated with that. It's the as above, so below, the microcosm, the macrocosm. So that's something to also consider about
Yeah,
just the lily in the tarot itself and what it represents.
right.
That's all I've got on that. Anything else? I don't think there's any. Oh, I need to
No.
hit Judaism. Okay, so we're gonna hit Judaism really fast. This is stuff that I thought was really interesting when I pulled apart. So the first account of the lily is given by Ibn Ezra, which is one of the most famous biblical commentators. And his commentary on the Song of Solomon, and one of the few descriptions of plants in Jewish literature. Now, this goes back to when you were talking about they grow together. Keep that in your mind, the growing together. It runs thus. It is a white flower of sweet but narcotic perfume, and it receives its name because the flower has in every case 6 petals within which are 6 long filaments. In Leviticus, it states that the heart of the flower is directed upwards, even though it is among thorns, thus symbolizing the trust in God, which should be felt by Israel amid all afflictions. So you think about the Exodus, right? Um, the Zohar speaks of the 13 leaves of the lily, which surround the flower as the 13 attributes of God, which encompass Israel. And if anybody hasn't read the Zohar, I strongly recommend you read it. Even if you're not Jewish, that's okay. Read it. The number is evidently derived from the description of Ibn Ezra with its 6 petals, 6 stamens, and 1 pistil, which we've talked about again. So in the Song of Solomon, more specifically, a lily among thorns, so is my love among the daughters. The lily among the thorns is likened to Rebecca, which if you know your Bible, which I roughly know, she remained pure amid evil surroundings, and it was difficult to save, while it was difficult to save the Israelites from the Egyptians as a lily from the thorns, they yet remained faithful among those that worship strange gods as the lilies among keep their beauty despite gashes and wounds. So lily in Hebrew literally means God is abundance and God is my earth, or my oath. Sorry, not my earth, my oath. So when you think about them growing together, it's literally like the lily is the symbol of Israel and of the Israelites who stuck together, that banded together to get through. It's very interesting to me. So as soon as you said that earlier, that's I was like, that goes back to Judaism. I'm
Yeah.
not Jewish, so don't stake me to a cross because I don't know everything. That's something I came across and I was like, that's interesting. And I did reach out to a friend of mine who is Jewish, and so Dan Peltzer, if you don't know him, he's a really cool guy. He runs Tarot Garden. So, anyways, I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, can you help me?" Blah blah blah. I'm trying to decipher. And he's like, "Girl, you jumped in the deep end." And I'm like, and he said, "You jumped right in the pool." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm trying to like, I understand what it means, but I want to understand it from more of the Jewish context, not just the outsider looking in." So,
Yeah,
anyways,
that's
that's
wild.
all I got. So that's
Yeah.
a lot on Lily though. And there's a
Girl.
lot of biblical references and there's a lot of goddess references that were very interesting to me, the way that they all tie together.
Yeah, it's a lot. My mind's blown.
Blown. Now that
Blown.
we've gone through conspiracy theories, Old Testament, New Testament, yeah, tons of it. So if I know we're out of time. If a lily were to show up for you, what would it mean? What would somebody look for? What would they think of? What should they think of?
Oof. Now my head is racing with everything we've talked about. This is where it gets tricky. You almost want to think about what is going on in your life when the lily starts popping up for you. Because obviously we've got some kind of different directions symbolically you can go with on what it may be a message of. And that's where it gets
Yeah.
tricky.
I
When
mean,
I
a calla lily is going to be different than a tiger lily, which is going to be different than a Madonna lily. They're
exactly,
all very different. They have different meanings. So it's what's
right.
going on in your life, what type of lily it is, what color of lily it is. Is it dead? Is it alive? Is it
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that you have to consider when it shows up.
Definitely. I mean, I still feel like a big takeaway is that purity, especially if you're seeing white lilies at all. But in my mind, in the adult world, very few of us are virginal and pure. But I think it's more about purity of intention. So for me, if I symbolically start seeing a lot of lilies in my peripherals or in my sights, I feel like it's almost a reminder to make sure my intentions are pure and my how do I what am I trying to say? That whatever I'm trying to do in life has my motives and intentions are pure. They're coming from a place of good intention. They're coming from a place of desire to better myself and other people and not does that make sense? Like
Yeah, yeah,
you gotta
absolutely.
check yourself sometime in your own motives and intentions. Are they pure?
Yeah, and I think especially with if you're a tarot reader, and the lily shows up because of the symbolism, and again, looking at the semen aspect, the mercurial aspect, the great work, alchemy, the Merkaba, that sort of thing. There's many different ways that you could look at just the purity, the cleansingness. Lord, I can't speak today. Cleanliness and cleansing aspect, that rebirth, that renewal,
Right.
and what comes with that. And it's always very interesting that, particularly, and we didn't go into this, but with baptisms and many different faiths, whatever you want to call it, doesn't just have to be Christianity in the term baptism. People wear white when they get baptized. So
Right.
that's another aspect of that white lily.
Right.
Well, that's all I got. You got anything else?
Girl, I think that
We went over again. We
we
got to
hit some
stop doing this.
points.
Yeah, there's a lot. The
We got
rabbit holes we went down.
yes, the rabbit holes. Boy, they get vast.
Yeah. So we want to thank our listeners and our viewers for sticking out another long symbol with us. And maybe at some point we're going to have to start doing like shorter 2-part episodes because some of these get so intense.
They do,
If you
don't
could,
they?
if you could do us a favor, check us out. Give us a review if you could. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on the podcast. Send us something saying, hey, like here's some tips, tricks, or whatever. Because we're kind of we're like winging it. We're episode 3. So we're open to all feedback. We've gotten really good feedback. But you don't get better if it's all just rainbows and unicorns. So feel free to be like, hey, I can't hear you. Hey, your camera's too bright. Hey, y'all talk too damn much. Shut up. So whatever that is, send it our way because we'd appreciate it. And make sure to check out the socials because I'm sure we're going to be dropping images. We're trying to get better at that. We've got a lot of things going on, but we're going to get better at dropping some images for you guys so you know what I'm talking about.
We are.
All right. Thank you for being with us, guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Bye.